You got a guy who's 37 years old, who's also hopped up on applesauce and throwing fucking wheel kicks at people. And there's just he was a different animal because he had so much knowledge behind him, but his body was moving like a young man's body.
In a sport that's defined by antics and trash talking, Vitor Belfort chose to let his fists do the talking. As a fiercely passionate mixed martial arts artist, Belfort always came to fight, and despite many ups and downs in his career, he refused to quit, with his thunderous knockout power being his unique selling point. Whether one chooses to attribute his success to TRT or some gym candy will always be up for debate, but it shouldn't change the fact that Belfort produced some of the most memorable and epic knockouts in his heyday and set numerous records along the way. Love him or hate him, Belfort is an absolute legend of the sport who's worthy of a spot in the MMA Hall of Fame, and this is his story. Vitor Belfort started training at the age of 12 in boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, winning several local and national competitions in the first few years of his career. He achieved his most impressive feat as a BJJ athlete in 1993, when he made history by becoming the youngest competitor to win a gold medal at the World Jiu-Jitsu Championships. Vitor's early success in BJJ caught the attention of Carlson Gracie, who invited the Brazilian to his gym for training. Under the guidance of Gracie, Belfort continued to sharpen his BJJ skills and began training in other martial arts disciplines, including wrestling and Muay Thai. Belfort's phenomenal talent was recognized early by the UFC, which was in need of such explosive fighters in its early days. Although the Brazilian had only one MMA fight under his belt when the UFC came calling, the promotion couldn't care less about his record. They didn't want to lose him to a rival promotion. At only 19 years old, Belfort signed with the UFC and entered the UFC 12 heavyweight tournament against far more experienced adversaries in 1997. Belfort, who goes by the nickname of the Phenom, won the tournament by defeating Trey Telligman in the semifinal and Scott Ferozzo in the final, both by TKO. In his third UFC fight, Belfort put the heavyweight division on notice by dispatching Tank Abbott in under a minute, a win that would earn him a title eliminator against MMA royalty Randy Couture. Due to his inexperience and Couture's accomplished wrestling credentials, Belfort failed to continue his winning ways, but he'd eventually bounce back with his submission victory against Joe Charles, before earning his biggest career victory against his compatriot and one of the legends of the sport, Wanderlei Silva. Their blockbuster fight took place at UFC Brazil in 1998, and it was well before Wanderlei truly hit his stride in mixed martial arts, but it was still an important highlight of Belfort's illustrious career. The fight lasted just under 50 seconds, with Silva being the aggressor and Belfort being the counterpuncher. The two legends spent the first 30 seconds feeling each other out before Silva decided to charge forward, and the Phenom immediately made him pay with a straight 1-2. Silva backpedaled immediately as Belfort blitzed him with a series of punches until his opponent crashed onto the canvas and the referee waved off the fight. After finishing Silva with ease, Belfort parted ways with the UFC to sign with Pride, which was arguably the biggest MMA promotion in the world at the time. Belfort had an impressive run in Pride, winning 4 of his 5 fights in the Japan-based promotion, but his finish rate dropped dramatically as he was only able to win 1 fight decisively by submission. Belfort's second UFC stint wasn't as successful as his first, yet he managed to win the UFC light heavyweight title. In his first fight after re-signing with the promotion, he lost to Chuck Liddell in a barn burner, before bouncing back with a huge knockout win against Marvin Eastman in 67 seconds. The Brazilian put Eastman away with ease, mixing both knees and punches into his decisive blows and opening up one of the nastiest cuts in MMA history just above the right brow of his opponent. It was an impressive comeback performance from Belfort, one that earned him a shot at the light heavyweight champion at the time, Randy Couture, at UFC 46 in 2004. Having already lost to Couture in his younger years, Vitor wasn't given much of a chance in the second fight either, but he pulled off a major upset when he landed a grazing punch that caused a cut near Couture's eye, impairing his vision to the point that he couldn't continue, and Belfort was declared the winner by a doctor's stoppage. His title run didn't last very long as he lost to Couture in an immediate rematch at UFC 49, and ironically, by a doctor's stoppage. After losing to Couture, Belfort lost a second straight time against Tito Ortiz and parted ways with the UFC again. From 2005 to 2009, the KO artist competed in various promotions, including Strikeforce, Pride, and Cage Rage, accumulating a record of 6 wins and 3 losses before signing with the UFC for a third time in his career. Belfort's third stint with the UFC is considered his best in terms of performances and highlights, since he produced some of the best knockouts in history. Upon his reappearance in the UFC, Belfort locked horns with fellow former champion Rich Franklin and instantly made an impact by knocking him out in the first round and putting the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions on notice. The UFC responded to Belfort's reemergence by offering a title fight against Anderson Silva in his following appearance, but unfortunately, he was on the receiving end of one of the most terrifying front kick knockouts in UFC history. By then, bouncing back from tough defeats had become a habit for Belfort, and he did exactly that in his next 2 fights, knocking out Yoshihiro Akiyama and submitting Anthony Johnson in the first round. Belfort's win against Johnson in particular was noteworthy, since it earned him a light heavyweight title fight against Jon Jones. Johnson, who had missed the middleweight limit by 12 pounds, pushed a very aggressive pace early with the intent of finishing the fight quickly, but he ran out of gas, and with nearly 10 seconds remaining on the clock, Belfort finished him to earn his first submission victory in nearly 10 years. Belfort again failed to capitalize on an opportunity to capture UFC gold, as Jon Jones dominated him before submitting him in the 4th round. In his next 3 fights, however, Belfort earned the most notable wins of his career. Immediately after losing to Jones, Belfort moved down to middleweight and decided to knock Michael Bisping out in such a brutal fashion that the Brit lost his eye. His fight against Bisping in 2013 lasted a round and a half. The first round was pretty close, with both having success in the striking exchanges, but a head kick late in the round shifted the tide in the Brazilian's favor. Bisping was the aggressor in the second round, outlanding his foe until he ran into a brutal left head kick that dropped him onto the canvas. Belfort added insult to injury with some additional shots before the referee intervened and put the Brit out of his misery. After sending Bisping to a place where time doesn't exist, Belfort gave Luke Rockhold a taste of his legendary Brazilian power at UFC on Fox. Rockhold was the more active of the 2 fighters, as he targeted his opponent's body with kicks before moving out of the danger zone quickly. Belfort was having some trouble connecting with his punches due to Rockhold's good distance management. Halfway through the first round, however, Belfort shifted strategies and went for a spinning heel kick, which landed right on the money, and down went the American. Belfort pounced on him within a split second and landed punches and bunches until his opponent was out cold. He earned knockout of the night and knockout of the year honors for his performance. The Brazilian continued his impressive knockout streak, earning a couple of knockout wins against Dan Henderson in his next 3 fights. Henderson's known for his granite chin, and the fact that Belfort was able to crack it twice is proof of how hard he hits. Heading into their fight in 2013, Henderson had the upper hand since he'd beaten Belfort in Pride 7 years ago in 2006, so he had a lot to prove. The 2 spent the first minute feeling each other out before Henderson froze for a second while shooting for a takedown. Hendo was caught in 2 minds, and Belfort cashed in on the opportunity by dropping him with a big uppercut and following that with some mean grounded pound. Henderson managed to get back onto his feet somehow, but as soon as he did, Belfort landed a head kick, and Hendo crashed onto the mat again and was put out of his misery by the referee. With 3 fights and 3 knockouts, 2013 was arguably the best year of his MMA career. Belfort and Henderson battled in a rubber match in 2015, where the Rio de Janeiro native earned a second consecutive knockout victory to earn bragging rights. It was also the final KO win of his MMA career. With 18 of his 26 wins coming by way of knockout, Belfort is the most decorated knockout artist in the UFC. He has 5 knockout of the night bonuses to his name, is second on the list of most knockouts in UFC history with 12, and holds the record for the most first-round finishes in UFC history. Due to ups and downs in his career, Belfort couldn't find as much success as some of his peers in combat sports, but his do-or-die spirit and lion-hearted performances inside the cage set his legacy apart from the rest. Where do you rank Vitor Belfort on the list of greatest knockout artists in MMA history? Give us your thoughts in the comments section below. If you liked our video, please subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications so we keep bringing you the stories that you love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.